Well, we are starting something brand new tonight. It's called Nicknames of Jesus, and so we'll get into that. But let me ask you: do any of you have a nickname? Nickname? Somebody just tell me your nickname. Bubba. Okay. A lot of people like nicknames. I had many nicknames growing up. The most common one, I think, is just being called by your last name. Anybody? That's thing. I don't know what it is. Teachers always do that. And I can tell you from when I was a teacher, the reason is they just don't remember your first name. Now, when I was a teacher, I'd be like, hey, and I'd for some reason remember their last name. No idea what their first name was. That's probably why that was a common one. So I was Hill for like all my freshman year. It's like, what's up, Hill? Hey, Hill. All my friends call me Hill. And then my sister came up my sophomore year. And then there was two of us. So then I became Big Hill, and she was Little Hill. And Big Hill is obviously a relative term because I'm not very big. And of course, we got all kinds of nicknames. We got D-Love over here, okay. And J-Dog, okay. I remember when we called Robbie Short Stuff, okay. I mean, for a long time it was Short Stuff, and now it'd be like, hey, Short Stuff, don't step on me, or I don't, because he's, it's funny how that kind of changed. A lot of you have nicknames. Most of your dads maybe have given you a nickname, and it's usually embarrassing, and we don't want to say it out loud. I know my dad did. I'm not going to tell you what it was. I had a lot of nicknames growing up. There was a group of people, actually there's about 4 or 5 girls that called me Sweet Stuff, and the reason they called me that, I'm going to tell you next week. I'm not going to tell you this week. You got to come back. So, but, okay, so when Tracy and I got married, when you're married, you got to, you can't just call each other by your names. Everybody's like, honey, sweetie, babe, whatever. And so one day I said to her, I said, hey, pumpkin, and, it was like a thing. And she goes, I was like, what? And she goes, you're not going to call me a big fat gourd, okay? I am not going to be the fit. No. So she did not want to be a pumpkin. So I thought for a minute, and I said, hey, Pixie. And she was like, what? And I was like a pixie stick. It's skinny and sweet. Yeah. And she likes it, so now she's Pixie, and that's what I call her. And none of you guys steal that for that girl you've been dating for 3 weeks, okay? That didn't count. So I call her Pixie and that kind of stuff. So we have nicknames. A lot of you have a nickname for somebody, a good friend. It's usually a friend. You don't typically just meet someone and nickname them. You don't walk up to some random tall guy and be like, what's up, Godzilla? And then you meet some big guy at Walmart and you're like, what's up, Blimpy? You're going to get smashed, okay? So nobody, you might do that with your friend, but you're not going to do that with a random person. Usually it's somebody that you know. And so, you've had nicknames and done that. And sometimes they're annoying and you wish nobody knew them, but that's just how it is. So Jesus, we've heard of him, and he has a name. His name was that because when Mary got pregnant, God told him that's what to name him, Jesus. Okay. In fact, in Matthew, just the very beginning of the New Testament, it says she will give birth to a son. This is an angel talking to Joseph. She will give birth to a son, and you are to give him the name Jesus, because he will save his people from their sins. Now, Jesus was not an uncommon name back then. Lots of people were named that, just like they still are. I was eating a Mexican food restaurant the other day, and the waiter's name was Jesus, okay? Or Jesus, okay? But it's still Jesus, all right? Which I would feel so intimidated if that was my name. Like, I have so much to live up to. But anyways, so that was his name. But then it says, the virgin will be with child and will give birth to a son, and they will call him Immanuel, which I'm calling a nickname for the sake of this, okay? Because it was not his name, but it's what people called him. Now, I know it's not real cool. It's not like, Godzilla, or I don't know, something stupid. It's just what they called him, Immanuel, which means God with us. And that right there is really significant to us, the fact that he is God with us. So I want us to get to know that nickname a little bit, Immanuel, that means God with us. Because a lot of people have weird images of Jesus and who he was. And I want you to realize that he was a person. Like, he was God, and he became a person, and he walked here on earth just like us. And we need to kind of understand this God with us thing, because we have weird images of Jesus. And it's not our fault. I Googled Jesus today and looked at the first images that came up. And this is just what people think of when they think of Jesus, okay? The glowing head, right? The heart that's glowing. Is this kind of what you maybe pictured when you think? I know it's kind of pixely, but that's the first one that pulled up. I kept looking. It's kind of blurry, but it looks like he plucked his eyebrows in this picture, and maybe a little bit of that whatever makeup goes right there. I don't know. How come they're always a glowing head? I guess he was that way. And then maybe you picture baby Jesus, okay? And so I typed baby Jesus, and then like, what is on baby Jesus' head? That looks so uncomfortable. Here, I can't decide if it's a baby or a light bulb, okay? So, and we have these weird images because that's kind of what we see in culture and stuff like that, of what Jesus looked like or acted like. But even like, this is like an actor, okay, who played Jesus. Even that, I think it's a little bit hard to relate to. Because none of us wear a thing on our head. Okay, most of the guys here don't have that long of hair. Some of you have got the beard, but I can't do that. It's just blotchy. And then, so I kept looking, and I clicked on this one. I am not kidding. This picture, I clicked on it, and then it said, #HotJesus. I was like, what are they trying to accomplish here? I guess to make you have a crush. I don't know. That's not, so we get these weird views. You cannot plan that stuff. You get these weird views of Jesus and who he was. But this is what I kind of want you to understand, is that he was a person like you, and he experienced life. And because he experienced life, you can relate to him, and he can relate to you. He was born like a baby, not a glowing head baby, okay? Not like this, like perfect. He was a real, does anybody have a little sibling, like you remember them being a baby? Anybody remember that? Okay. Do you remember them not sleeping? And you're like, would you just go to sleep? Okay, now I know, I have a baby too. And Jesus did that. I mean, his mom, it's not like he was a regular baby. And then he was a toddler, okay? I have a toddler now. Toddlers are super fun. The other day, I was talking to her, and I was trying to get her to say dad, right? And so I'm going, dad. And she's not saying anything. I said, dad, over and over again, dad. And finally, she looks right at me, and she goes, but. I was like, no, dad. And then she just turned around and went, blah, 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 and just walked off. I was like, thanks for that, baby. And you know, but here's what I'm getting at. Jesus was a toddler, okay? He was once a little Jesus walking around, okay? And I don't know if he went blah, 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 or not, but he was just a baby. Then he was a toddler. And then he was a teenager, okay? He was 12. He was 15, okay? He was a teenager, and he grew up, and he was a person. And we get this weird view. And I know he wore different clothes than us, but if he lived now, he would be wearing jeans probably and a t-shirt, okay? It would be normal. He was just a person. Now, he was God, but he became a person, and he was like us in that way. And so it's really important that we understand that, because it helps us relate to him and helps us understand how he feels about us. So let me show you why it's so important, okay? In Hebrews chapter 2, Hebrews is a book in the New Testament that is very hard to understand. If you've ever read Hebrews, some of you are probably like, what are they talking about? And a lot of it is really complicated. Not the best book to start with, okay, if it's your first time reading the Bible. But I'm going to show you a little bit of it real quick. In Hebrews chapter 2, it says this: for this reason, he's talking about Jesus, had to be made like them, fully human in every way, in order that he might become merciful and faithful. Become a merciful and faithful high priest in service to God, and that he might make atonement for the sins of the people. Here's what I want you to understand. He became fully human, it says, so that he could be merciful and faithful. See, because he can be merciful because he understands, because he gets where you're at, because he's experienced life. He keeps going, it says, because he himself suffered when he was tempted, he is able to help those who are being tempted. So let me ask you a question. How many of you have been tempted? You don't have to put both hands up. Yeah, but yeah, okay, we've all been tempted. Every single person has been tempted and faced that. And this is so important. Because Jesus also was tempted, he's able to help you when you're tempted. He's like, oh yeah, I remember that. I remember when I was tempted. Now, he didn't sin, but he was tempted. In fact, not just, this word also means tested, okay? It wasn't just like, oh, like you're thinking lust or things like that, okay? He was tempted to be angry at somebody and lash out. He would have been tempted to just be full of stress and give up. And these kind of things that you deal with, he was tempted. In fact, and 2 chapters later, it says this: for we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weakness. In other words, Jesus can sympathize with your weakness. When you have weaknesses, he understands. He can understand what you're struggling with. But we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet was without sin. Let us then approach the throne of grace with confidence so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. So let me ask one more time. Have you ever had a time of need? Okay, yes. Okay, yes. You don't have to raise your hand. Some of you, I'd be like, do you want $100? No, I'm not going to raise my hand. Okay. But yeah, we've all had a time of need, right? We've all been there. And this is what it says. Because he was tempted, because he's gone through it, because he suffered, he can help us in our time of need. So I want you to know, whatever you face, whatever your temptation is, whatever it is, he can help you. He is there for you in your time of need because he understands. And I don't know about you, but it's important to know that somebody understands when you're going through something, right? I mean, like if you go through a breakup and like, in your relationship problems and you go to your friend and they're like, oh, I've never had a relationship, all my relationships are perfect. You're like, just shut your mouth, get out of my face, okay? Because you want somebody that can like relate to you, okay? So like when I was going through something, like when my mom had cancer, okay? It was nice to talk to somebody else who had gone through that and could encourage me, right? And now I can talk to others that have gone through that. And so it's nice to see that. And see, Jesus understands. He's been tempted. He's been in this world and he knows what life is like. And so I want to talk to you about some ways that you may not know that Jesus actually relates to you in. Because we picture him in this weird way. But I want you to know that you can count on him in these areas and that he understands in these areas. So the first one is this. Jesus understands relationships. Relationships. Now, you're thinking dating, but all kinds of relationships, okay? He had a family. If you look in Mark chapter 6, verse 3, it tells us that there was Jesus and he had 4 brothers, okay, and at least 2 sisters. There may have been more, but we know of at least 2, okay? So that's 7 kids. Now, how many of you have a brother or sister? And brother or sister, okay. Do you always get along? No. Some of you are like a big no. Okay. You know what it's like when you have a family of brothers and sisters. And I can imagine that it was sometimes not easy. Okay. I mean, he had 4 other brothers. He's probably been duct taped to a chair. Maybe not duct tape. They probably didn't have that. But you know what I'm saying? There was probably some tension amongst his brothers and sisters. In fact, with Jesus, some things probably made it worse. Like, if you've ever had a sibling be jealous of you or mad at you because the parents like you better, can you imagine how many times his parents might have said, oh, why can't you just be more like Jesus? It's like, I hate Jesus, okay? And like all that. I wonder if one of the brothers ever punched him because like, how does that go down in eternity? It's like, yeah, you punched the Son of God. It's like, because it was just a brother, okay? He was a person that was there. I mean, I don't know, maybe one day his brother comes in, Mom, tell Jesus to stop reading my mind, He's walking on the bathwater again. I don't know. No, actually, from what we could tell, Jesus didn't do any miracles or anything until he was at least 30 years old, okay? So we always get this weird, like maybe Jesus was like doing miracles all growing up. It doesn't seem that way. He lived life like that. And he understands relationships. He had parents. He had friends. He had siblings. He went through that. And so he knows what it's like to have chores at home. Right? He knows what it's like to be single, all right? He knows what that's like. He knows what it's, okay, he has hormones. Jesus had hormones. We'll just say that, okay? He was a teenage guy. And it says he was tempted in every way. He did not sin, but he was tempted in every way. He knows what it's like to be betrayed by his friends. We know he was betrayed. One of his closest friends is the one that turned him over to be arrested when he was crucified, right? And then when he was arrested, if you're in trouble, what do you need? You need your friends, right? You need them to come and support you. And what did his friends do? They all ran. Some of them pretended like they never even knew him. They were not there to help him through that time. He knows what it's like to be pushed away by his friends. Some of you know exactly what that's like. What I want you to know is Jesus understands. He knows what it's like for your family to not believe in you or trust you or get you. There was one point when he was teaching and doing some stuff, and his family comes up, and they literally say, he is out of his mind. They're like, Jesus, he's crazy. We're getting him. And they're come to take him back home, telling all the crowd, he's crazy, y'all. We're sorry. This is crazy Jesus. And they take him home. That was his family. His brothers didn't even believe in him until after they saw him die and then raised from the dead. I mean, once you see somebody raised from the dead, it's kind of like, okay, I believe in you now. But they didn't believe in him. I mean, his own family. So he knows what it's like to struggle or to have problems in relationships. The next thing I want you to understand is Jesus understands life. Just life. Like he had to get up in the morning. I know for some of you, that's like the worst thing. Like you're thinking, school, I have to get up. I get up at 4 now. I mean, some of you are getting up afternoon, aren't you? Yeah, I see it. I see us. Okay. Yeah, I mean, Jesus had to get up. I don't know why we just picture like this weird thing. He lived and he did the normal life. He most likely started working when he was 12 years old. That's when they usually started working at that time. We don't know for sure. And he was a carpenter. In other words, he built stuff like out of wood. Okay, he was a carpenter. And it really bothers me every time I see a picture of Jesus. He's always got like milky skin and like shampooed hair and like with a straightener. And then it's like white, perfect robe because he was a carpenter. Okay, he probably, was more rough than that, okay? If he was today, he'd be wearing like jeans and a tool belt, okay, and a t-shirt. Because he was a worker. He did that for probably 18 years. He was a carpenter. And they didn't have power tools, all right? He wasn't like nail gun. The other day, I was building something here at the church, and I was using an electric saw, okay, and we have one battery powered. And I went and had to cut a 2x4, right? And I started to cut it, and the battery died. And I was like, what am I going to do now? So I went in the closet, and there was this piece of metal with little teeth on it. Yeah, there was a saw, a hand one, and I was like, I guess this will do it. And I started sawing that board. I had to take like 2 Dr. Pepper breaks before I could finish that. And I was like, my arm hurts, and I'm not very good at it. Here's my point, though. He did manual labor. He was probably pretty strong, okay? He was not this little weakling guy that we always kind of see on TV or in movies or in whatever. He worked, okay? He did life. He paid taxes. He bought food. Okay, he had skin. He got bruises. Okay, he just was. I want you to see him differently maybe than you do right now. And the last thing I want to say or point out is that he understands pain. Now, I know the first thing we think about is the cross, and that's obvious. Okay, he understands physical pain, but most of us deal more with emotional pain. And did you know he dealt with a lot of emotional pain through his life? It says in Isaiah 53, verse 3, it's a prophecy about Jesus, talking about Jesus before he was even alive, but it says this. It says, he was despised and rejected by men. Have you ever felt rejected by people? Rejected by somebody, despised, hated by somebody? He knows, because he was. It says, a man of sorrows and familiar with suffering. He was familiar with people mistreating him. If you think about it, even from when he was a kid, can you imagine what this was like? Can you imagine kids saying, you know what I heard? His dad's not really his dad. In fact, his mom told him that God got her pregnant. Like, can you imagine? Like, how could you convince your friends that was true? Okay, there's no way he wasn't made fun of for that. He was made fun of because, in Scripture, because of where he was from, because he was a Nazarene. He was made fun of for his race. He was put down for so many different things. He was... and all of you feel that. You've gone through that. We already talked about how his family rejected him at times and his friends. He went through that kind of rejection and pain. Here's something a lot of people don't know. So when Jesus was about to die, he was on the cross. He looks there's Mary and John. John's one of the disciples, are right there. And he says to Mary, he says, Mom, or he says, woman, behold your son, talking to John, and it says, John, behold your mom. Now, they weren't mother and son, but he was saying, if from this point on, I'm about to go, you're taking care of her. And then it says that she went home with him from that time forward. Now, that would not have happened if his dad was still alive. So most theologians, most people believe at some point during Jesus' ministry, when he was about my age probably, his dad died, which means he experienced the death of a loved one. And he walked his mom home from the grave where her sweetheart was. Does that make sense? I mean, if you've suffered loss, guess what? Jesus understands. That's why that verse says he can sympathize with you. He can understand. He's there to help in time of need. Why? Because he has gone through it. And he's there for you. And because of all of that, I think you can actually call him a friend. Now, if he's just this like weird glowing head person that doesn't really exist, and like, then I can understand. It would be weird for us to say, hey, you could be a friend with Jesus. But you can be a friend with Jesus because he went through all that. In fact, he wants you to be his friend. Did you know that? He says in John 15, it's the last scripture. John 15:15 says this, I no longer call you servants because a servant does not know the master's business. Instead, this is Jesus talking. He says, I have called you friends. He wants to call us his friends. And he can be your friend because he understands. Your friends understand you, right? Your friends get you. Your friends have experienced, you've done stuff together. And he understands. He's been there. So this is what I want to ask you to do. Talk to him. Talk to him like a friend. When you're going through a trouble, talk to him. And you guys, this is how you talk. I know this is how most of you talk. Right? I've seen you. You're just walking around, and like every 2 minutes you go, and I'm like, what are you doing? Just all day long. Some of you have an all-day conversation with a friend. Have you ever done that? You know what I'm talking about? Just all day long, you're talking to him, and you put it in your phone, and then it's every night buzz, okay? Whether it's texting or snapping or whatever, Insta whatevering, okay? I don't know. You're just all day long. It's in and out, in and out, in and out. And it's just, and you get up in the morning and the conversation just continues, okay? What if you just started to talk to God like that? Talk to Jesus like that? I mean, I don't have his number. I can't tell you how to text him. But just as you're going through your day, Father, I'm really stressed out right now because things aren't going very good at home. Me and my parents, we're just not getting along. You know what Jesus would say? Oh, I remember that. I remember when my family came and grabbed me on the side of the road and told everybody I was crazy. None of them believed in me. And just talking to him. You're having a struggle? Talk to him. He understands. Let him be there to comfort you in that. Before I was a youth pastor here, I moved to Houston. And I didn't know anybody. I had no friends. I literally did not know a single person in the town when I moved there. And there was a person in my life that it was like they made it their job to make my life miserable. Have you ever had anyone like this? He would make me look bad in front of people. He would put me down. If we were in front of people, he would make me look like I did something stupid. If we were behind closed doors, he'd talk down to me. And it was just all the time. And it was stressing me out. It was bothering me. I mean, if you've ever had, I wouldn't call this a bully. It was a coworker. But it was, maybe you've had somebody like that. Somebody in your life that was putting you down and tearing you down. And I was just ready to somehow get out of it. I didn't know what to do. Didn't have anybody to talk to. But you know what? I found strength. And the way I found strength was I started to talk to my friend about it. And my friend Jesus, that's what I'm talking about. I began to talk to him about it. And so, we'd have this thing, and I'd be all frustrated or all down, and I would just go find a place. Or sometimes I'd just be walking across the room and just start talking to my friend. I need help. I don't know how to handle this. And you know what I found? I found somebody that understood. And if you'll begin to go to him when you're having trouble, you'll find somebody that understands too. We're going to end like we usually do, and we're going to end with just a short time of prayer. Because I know that some of you are in a place right now where you would say, I need help. And so if you need help in anything, I want you to go pray with someone in the back of the room in just a moment. They will pray with you and believe that you will find comfort from the one that understands. Immanuel, God who is with us. And he's with you. And he cares for you, and he understands you. So if you need prayer for anything that's going on in your life, in just a moment we're going to stand, go to the back of the room. There'll be people there to pray with you. We're going to sing part of a song together, and then we'll be dismissed. Father, I thank you that you love us. You sent Jesus here so that he could understand us, sympathize with us, and give us grace. I pray that every person in need would find comfort in your Son. In Jesus' name, amen.